It's the SNL Hall of Fame podcast with your host, Jamie Dew, Chief Librarian Thomas Senna, and featuring Matt Ardill. And now, curator of the hall, Jamie Dew.
Thank you so much, Doug Donets. It is great to be here inside the SNL Hall of Fame with you all. Now, careful listeners of the show pointed out to me that I didn't remind you to wipe your feet last week. It's not lost to me. I truly thought I had solidified my stance on this matter to the extent that it would become the norm. But alas, if you are paying for the pay-per-view feed right now, you can see that I'm holding a mop. Jeepers creepers, peoples, wipe your damn feet. The SNL Hall of Fame podcast is a weekly affair where each episode we take a deep dive into the career of a former cast member, host, musical guest, or writer and add them to the ballot for your consideration. Once the nominees have been announced, we turn to you, the listener, to vote for the most deserving and help determine who will be enshrined for perpetuity in the hall. And that's how we play the game. Let's go to our friend Matthew Ardill right now, because the game that we like to play is learning a little bit about our nominee, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Let me just put this mop down, and okay. Oh, gosh, I'm parched. There's something going on with my voice. Matthew, old man, how are you doing this week?
I am good, thanks. And you?
I'm a little shaky in the voice, it seems.
Well, maybe you need some water.
Let me take a sip of this water. That's better. It is delicious. We talked about water last week. We'll put a pin in it until next week.
Yes.
We don't want to, give away the farm, as it were.
Yeah.
Maya Rudolph, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really looking forward to sharing about Maya's life. She is an incredible character.
This is interesting because this is her last kick at the can. If she doesn't get in this time, and I believe she was hovering around 58 or 59%. So she needs, almost 10% to get in, 10% more to get in. And if she doesn't get in, she's off the ballot.
That would be a shame because she is an incredible performer and a hilarious person. So take this as a word, not telling people how to vote, but just be mindful of that, folks. This is their last chance.
Yeah. Well, let's hear some trivia to maybe sway some people.
Yeah. Maya Rudolph is 5'7", birthday July 27th, 1972. She has 118 acting credits, 12 producer credits, 2 writing credits, and 30 soundtrack credits. She was born in Gainesville, Florida, but was raised in LA, the daughter of singer Minnie Riperton and composer Richard Rudolph. Her mother is the singer of the song Lovin' You, which I've now 3 times brought up to my wife, and every time we hear it, and she goes, "If you're going to tell me Maya Rudolph's mom sang this one more time, I'm going to throw a pillow at you." But yeah, she did. And in fact, if you listen to the single, you can hear her singing Maya, 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 because this is a lullaby that she wrote for Maya and was used to sing her to sleep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Now, and her grandfather, on her father's side, Sidney J. Rudolph, owned all of the Wendy's and Rudy's restaurants in Dade County, Florida. So he was
no Rudy's, but Wendy's. That would be amazing. I love Wendy's.
Fast food entrepreneur. She was childhood friends with Gwyneth Paltrow, and their families were actually very close to the point that her dad was hired by Bruce Paltrow to supervise music on his film Duets. Music runs in her blood. Her brother is also in the music industry as an engineer. When she was 7 or 8, this is actually when she fell in love with comedy. She saw a friend hurt themselves and start crying, so she started doing a funny voice that made them laugh. And she thought to herself, this is much better than feeling bad. I want to make her feel good. And that's sort of been her philosophy going forward. She studied photography at University of Santa Cruz and formed a band called Super Sauce with classmates before joining the band The Rentals, which was fronted by
Matt Sharp.
Matt Sharp, yeah. They released several singles, including 7 More Minutes, Barcelona, and My Head is in the Sun. She toured singing.
Oh, you got to say Friends of P.
Oh, Friends of P. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, she toured singing backup and playing Moog synthesizer when the
Friends
band
with P. Sorry. I apologize.
There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah. But when the band broke up, she actually decided to start pursuing comedy and joined the Groundlings. She has been in 2 Oscar-nominated films and has indicated her dream reboot would be to either remake Tootsie or play Violet or Dora Lee in a 9 to 5 reboot. I want that 9 to 5 reboot.
Oh, that feels like low-hanging fruit. Like in a good way. Like, how has that not been done? They're
exactly.
Fall
That's
Guy,
like,
for heaven's sake.
Yeah, like that's like I said, low-hanging fruit in that it's so obviously awesome.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would she not do that? And I can just imagine her singing the song too, like the working 9 to 5. Like it'd just be beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So she later formed a Prince cover band called Princess with her friend Gretchen Lieberum in 2011. And Prince himself was a big fan.
Oh my gosh.
This shows there's no bad blood over the Prince show sketch. Now the first time she actually met Prince was on a 5-hour plane ride. He asked if they had met before, and she thought he must have confused her with someone else. But he later came back and asked if her baby sang to her. And she said, yeah, she makes noise all the time. Prince responded, maybe that's your mom. The first time I saw your mom was on the Mike Douglas show. I shed a tear. So Prince was just such a beautiful human being. There's like a connection there between the two of them. Yeah.
I'm speechless right now.
Well, I mean, that's how Prince leaves everyone at one point or another, just does something so miraculous and wild and awesome that you're just like, I've got no words.
No words at all. Well, we have a lot more words, though, coming your way in a conversation between Thomas and Rebecca North. This should be a good one, Matt.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So let's head down to Thomas now.
All right, Matt and JD, thank you so much. Yes, we are talking about somebody who has been a very beloved cast member who has been on the ballot since season 1. So this is like one of those very special episodes of the SNL Hall of Fame where we get to almost relitigate or re-examine somebody's candidacy. Somebody who I'm surprised isn't already in the SNL Hall of Fame because this person's so beloved. So I'm excited today to chat about Maya Rudolph, and joining me, a first-timer here on the SNL Hall of Fame podcast, Rebecca North is joining me to chat about Maya Rudolph. Rebecca, how you doing today?
I'm good, Thomas. I'm happy to be here. This is my first time, so I'm excited to voice my opinions about someone who I'm shocked. It's been 5 seasons now and still has not made it to the Hall of Fame, and that was groundbreaking to me, so I'm here to vouch for Maya and kind of talk through her career and history on SNL. So yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, we'll dig in to see like why she might not be, or we'll definitely try to make another case for her Hall of Fame candidacy for sure. And you're a great person to come on and talk with me about this. You and I were teammates a long time, 2 years ago on the Saturday Night Network's trivia, we did a little trivia together. So I don't know that we won. We were going up against like Bill Kenny and stuff, and he probably dominated us. But that's how we first came in contact. And you've been doing stuff over at the Saturday Night Network off and on. What have you been up to over at the SNN recently?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. That was my first episode on SNN as a guest for trivia, and we did get annihilated, but it was fun. I feel like very insightful. Like I learned a lot through that. When I was signed up, I was like, oh, it's going to be a piece of cake. And then, no, we were up against people who have been watching for live for a million years and rewatch it and do all that. So that was fun. But yeah, I'm over at the Saturday Night Network, and I'm going on a lot of those roundtables, recapping the episodes, and just really enjoying this season leading up to season 50 of SNL, which is going to be a huge one. So loving kind of the gap bridging between like millennials and Gen Z, specifically on the show and the writing staff. So this has been like an exciting kind of transitional season for that, at least I'm viewing, where some of the guests are people that most of the viewers have never heard of, but they're really exciting to me. So I'm excited to get really just into SNL this season.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting season. I like hearing you on the hot take shows and the roundtables, because I think you and I often share similar sensibilities and similar opinions with the show. And I think your opinions they're mostly positive, they're fair, but you're not just going to say everything's great. That's what I like. You have a discerning eye for this. So I think your voice on the SNN and the roundtables and such, I think is a really nice perspective, Rebecca. So I'm glad you're sharing that perspective with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. And I also know we both have a shared love for pop culture and all things there. So it's going to be exciting to talk about someone who was on the show and is really just pivotal in pop culture, I think. Like as far as some of those not earlier, but like middle of SNL cast members go. I think Maya is definitely someone we've seen, is very well known just in the world, and people that have never even watched SNL know Maya Rudolph. It's just a name, which is why I'm so shocked that season 5, she's still not in the Hall of Fame.
I know,
so
she pops up
excited.
everywhere too. Like so many shows that I watch, like is it the Good Place? Like, I didn't even expect her to pop up in The Good Place, and she played the judge, and my wife and I were like, oh my gosh, Maya Rudolph. Like, we were so excited. She just does that. She's just like omnipresent in pop culture.
That was actually a reference that when I was thinking about her before this, it was such a small character, but had such an impact on The Good Place that I really loved that. I'm glad you brought that one up.
No, absolutely. That's what she does. Maya just pops up, and then like everybody, we all get excited to see Maya on her screen. She's like an electric performer. Rebecca, I'm curious about, since you're a first timer here on the show, you've never, haven't shared obviously your SNL fandom with us. So tell us about like your SNL fandom. When did you start watching the show? Any particular cast members or casts in general?
So I watched the show a lot. It was very big in my household. My parents aren't super fans, but they don't miss an episode. They watch every Saturday night. No matter what they would do, they would have it on TiVo, I remember growing up, and then DVR it to watch it. Just every Saturday night, they go to sleep after the news and watch the rest the next day. And I think around high school is when I started to appreciate SNL. The other side of me, I'm big on pop culture, but I became very just interested in politics and just learning a lot more about this world, because I feel like I would have conversations with people and actually even no clue what I was talking about. And that was something that I was always like missing. And then I actually really got into SNL because of the politics and the stances there, and seeing Tina Fey as Sarah Palin. I suddenly knew who Sarah Palin was and knew how to give an opinion and a stance and know that. So that's actually what really like hooked me. I've always been a big comedy fan, like any sitcom that. I even do some stand-up now and sketch around New York. Yeah, I dabble. I'm not super well-versed, but I started when I lived in Seattle.
It takes a lot to even dabble. I've done it once. I did a 5-minute set once, and I'm like, this is tough.
5 for your first set is a lot. I lived in Seattle during the pandemic, and I'm not from there, so I'm from New York. And the way that I actually got to meet people was I took an improv class. And through that, not an improv girl, but I met someone that was like, I feel like you do good stand-up. You want to come with me one night? And that's actually how I made a lot of like my social life and friends there is just going to open mics, doing open mics, working on things with people. So that's how I got into that. And then when I moved back to New York, the way that I met some other people here was taking a sketch class at People's Improv Theater. And through that, going to a lot of shows and open mics and just making connections with people. So comedy's always just been at the root of things in my life. But then really, when I started like understanding it and really appreciating the show, that it was like a universal experience, but I just never sat and watched. I think around high school time is that when my parents would record it, even if I was doing my thing, running around like at night every Sunday, like even to date, like I don't usually watch it live. I watch it every single Sunday. It's part of my routine now. Okay. I watch it like Sunday, 11 o'clock. I wake up, I'm making breakfast and I'm watching SNL. And it's basically just been a constant in my life. And a lot of it really stemmed, weirdly enough, from getting to know and learn and understand politics in a fun way.
Yeah.
As fun as they can be these past few years anyway. So
it's really interesting. Yeah, I don't often hear people say it was politics. Even though SNL's synonymous with politics, that's a really neat way to get into the show. I love it. And so like, when did you first take notice of Maya Rudolph as a performer? Was it SNL?
It was SNL. So Maya Rudolph and Kristen Wiig are like my two favorite cast members of all time. And a lot of it was their interactions with each other. And I was able to see a lot of like myself and my friends in them and the way that they interact and the way that they bring each other onto their projects in real life, or even watching them on a talk show or red carpet, or they're presenting an award at the Emmys together. Like the way that they interacted, I also felt the same, similar with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, where I was just like, me and my girlfriend just sit and do this. And we just kind of shoot the shit and talk and are funny and friends. And I think that's what really felt relatable to me. And I think in actually some of the sketches that I like think so highly of Maya in, a lot of them are her and Kristen, or just her being her, but in like a funny way and adapting. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like that's what drew me in to her, is like I could see myself being friends with her. And I can't say that about everyone that's been on this show, but I'm like, You're someone that like I'd get coffee with, and I feel like I'd have a great time. So
I could see that, definitely. It seems like she'd be easy to be friends with.
For sure.
Yeah, if she was my friend, she would probably say, you know what, Thomas, I'm disappointed. I've been on the ballot this is my 5th time on the ballot now, and I'm not in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, like what's the deal? So
you have to make it up to her to get a friendship.
I know, jeez, I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Maya. So in season 1, she had 47% of the vote. Seasons 2, 3, and 4, actually, it's been hovering around 58%. Like, it's been very, very steady. So almost like knocking at the door, Rebecca, the candidates need 66.7% of the vote to get in. So about 2/3 of the vote. So she's like knocking on that door, but not quite over the hump. So why do you think, like, do you have any theories as to why Maya hasn't got over that hump and been voted into the Hall?
Yeah, so something that stuck out to me as a reason why I love her, but I actually could see people not, is obviously we've seen her do countless impressions on the show. So from Beyonce to Kamala Harris to just all of these different people, but she still kind of maintains Maya in that. And I think maybe from an impressionist point of view, you look at someone like, top of mind right now is Chloe Fineman. And you look at Chloe, and she's an impressionist. Whenever she puts a wig on, she embodies that person. And Maya, the similar to if Sarah Sherman does an impression, I'm just relating it to this season, is it's Sarah Sherman still. And you still have all of her quirks and all of that. Maya is very that. And that's actually why I like her, because I'm like, yeah, you're not blending completely into this person. I think there are two types of people that do impressions on SNL. People, JAJ, that just completely embodies that, and you actually might not be able to tell who is who if they're talking next to each other. And people that sometimes are funnier to me is someone that, like, their quirks and their characteristics come through, and it's like Maya Rudolph as Kamala Harris. And sometimes that's even funnier to me than an actual spot-on impression, because if you're not going to do a perfect impression, at least let your comedy come through. But that's something that I specifically like. I have dabbled in the space, and I'm not an impressionist. I made a joke that the only impression I could do is like either a 60-year-old chain smoker or like an old man, just based on my voice and my stature. And I'm just like, you would see me through any impression I've done. So that is something that like shines out to me, is that like love that and respect them when someone could do that and make it funny and really let themselves come through that. Like Aidy Bryant as well as someone that's like, you're laughing at them. You're not laughing at the spot on impression. So I see the flip side of maybe people being like, Maya is always Maya. No matter what she is, what character she's playing, what impression she's doing, it's still Maya Rudolph as that person. It's not her embodying someone, which I respect, but I think that actually could be one of the reasons that she hasn't gotten her way onto the ballot yet.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good theory. You do bring up a good point about impressions that I wanted to circle back to too, because we've talked about on the SNL Hall of Fame, we've talked about impressions quite a bit and like what your taste in impressions is and what you look for. And I think the way Maya's done it is preferable to me over somebody who's like technically sound. We've had a lot of impressionists on SNL who are technically great impressionists. Some recent ones actually who didn't quite hit on the show, because I think with an impression, Rebecca, you have to have a take and it has to be funny. You can't, to me, you only get so much mileage out of just sounding like the person and looking like the person. Like you actually have to have some comedic value to the impression. So I don't want to bring up names because I don't, but there's been impressionists on the show in the past who've done very sound, technically great impressions, but there's no comedic take behind it. So with Maya, I think we see a lot of funny comedic takes. Does she sound 100% like Beyonce? It's okay. Like, I don't know. You can kind of tell she's trying to play Beyonce, but there's like some sort of take there. Same with Donatella Versace. She does a weird one of Scott Joplin, who's like a real person. She did a couple of some of my favorite Maya's work. It wasn't quite an impression. It was kind of her take on like a historical figure, like a funny take. But there's the comedic value in it. So that was a really good point, Rebecca, about impressions and Maya and how she does impressions. But I have a confession for you.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who has been on the fence about voting her in. And so here's my, and I am glad you asked me in that tone, because I've asked myself in that tone. I'm like, what?
In my judgy tone.
Yeah, no, I've asked myself in that judgy tone too. But I finally pinpointed it, I think. So Maya was on from 2000 to 2007. And I think she spent much of her time on SNL in the wrong era for her skill set. I think like the early to mid 2000s, I think that catered to a lot of, and then there's a lot of like lowbrow kind of humor. There was a lot, and I think she was capable of so much more. I think she was very clever, but she didn't always get a lot of clever sketches on. I think she was way more like, her skill set was a lot more diverse than maybe the era catered to. So that's just kind of my taste, but I think that's kind of what the era was. There was a lot of like, it's hard to describe, from like about 2001 to like 2005. It was a lot of edgelord humor. It was a lot of like, let's dress up an athlete in a wig and a dress. Let's put our female host and just give her a wig and some jewelry and make her talk like a hip hop affectation kind of character. I don't know. It's just like it was a weird vibe in comedy just in general around that time. So I don't know if you could see where I'm coming from with maybe her skill set. She would have been better off in a different time of SNL where she could have really shined, I think.
I could actually really agree with that. It was also a really saturated cast. So for everyone to stand out, and saturated not only by volume, but talent and big personalities. Like you see nowadays, even this season, it's a very saturated cast, but there are a lot of people that are really strong background characters that like they shine in that. But I would say from her 6-7 years on the show, it really was a lot of huge personalities comedically, like kind of fighting for that spotlight there. So the edgier or the probably more lowbrow you could get at the time, I feel like the more that you shined on the show, and that's what it needed to be then, and that was kind of what we were seeing comedy at that time. So I do agree with you there. And yeah, I feel like even now, just like learning about Maya and her, I feel like she's very cultured and like intelligent outside of comedy. And that inspires a lot of it, like her Prince tribute band. And going through that, she has a lot of niche interests and quirks that I feel like if she was on a different season, even like on current season, the writing cast was different and they would really let it shine and kind of write things around someone that would understand. I think about Bo and Yang doing the Troye Sivan sketch. Did it relate to everyone? No. But was it funny because it was someone doing something they were passionate about and understood and got? I feel like if Maya was on a more recent season, I would say probably from like 2015 till now, the writers would tailor things to her and she wouldn't just have to fit in and be the funny character in what she was doing. And you have her and Kristen Wiig as like a dynamic duo throughout the seasons together. And they are so different and their humor is so different. And I feel like although their partnership was something that we've seen from the show on and through that, I feel like it was more for Kristen to shine than it allowed for Maya to shine. And I think that is probably the reason she isn't in this Hall of Fame. But as you look back, like taking a deeper eye to this, and the reason why I'm so excited to talk about her is like she was just standard and reliable. Like you knew she was going to say something or sing something and we were going to laugh. Whether she was the star of it and whether it was even her like area to shine comedically, she always did trigger a laugh from the audience. So although you don't want to like pit women against each other, but I kind of feel like the writers then had to pick the star, and Kristen definitely got that spotlight and Maya was more of a supporting role, and I actually feel like they could have balanced that a little different.
Yeah, that's something that you just articulated that I think I've always felt, but I never really articulated it to myself, is like that dynamic with her and Kristen and maybe a little bit Amy. I think she and Amy were actually really good. So, like, of course, they did Bronx Beat together and stuff, but I think they actually had like a really good partnership. I wish that Maya, she ended on SNL in 2007. I wish she could have had a few more years because I think that cast was just finding its groove around 2007. So I would wish Maya could have been a part of them really hitting the peak. Like I wish she could have done more stuff with Sudeikis and Hader and even developed more of a partnership with Kristen. So I think she was in a weird era and she was part of when the show kind of flipped and got another golden era. But I wish she could have been more of that golden era than she was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that actually is a really good point. Like, as they transitioned over, she was one of the cast members that transitioned with them, but didn't get to see it through fruition the way that, like, she probably should have after the year she put into it. Like,
yeah.
And if she was able to stick around and actually, like, help with the transition and do that and move that over. So that's an awesome point because I feel like the show really flips each big era from, like, is who dominates it, especially I think like gender's a big thing. Like, is it being carried by like Andy Samberg, Jason Sudeikis, Bill Hader? That was a very male heavy, like leading a lot of the sketches. And then you go to Kate McKinnon, Cecily, and 80, and that was very, very female dominating. And I kind of wished, even just as a general statement throughout the years, there was better balance and you would see more dynamic duos from like the women and the men on the cast. And I think that's actually something that SNL has really never quite nailed down since the early seasons. Like really from the Not Ready for Primetime Players. That I think had the best balance between everyone had a role, but since the casts are so saturated now, it's easier to make a more bro-y sketch or a more like female-oriented sketch. And that's just natural and due to the nature. But I kind of feel like that's what we're missing now is that sweet spot. You look at all the duos or trios or groups of people in the past from 2000 on, and there's never really like a male-female dynamic duo leading that. Yeah. And I actually think like Maya and Fred could have done that. And we see in real life that they kind of are that dynamic duo. And we've seen that really come to terms after the show and all of that. But I think that's like an area that we've been missing for a while is like having someone just really dominant that way. And I think that would just make maybe every sketch more reliable to this. So I talked to John about sketches that he all-time favorites thinks is the funniest things with like Andrew Dismukes. And I'm like, yeah, I laughed. It wasn't like necessarily my thing. Or like little things like that. And that's, I guess, reaching all the different people in the audience. But kind of looking for that sweet spot. And I feel like she could have been a really good bridge between that.
She really could have. That's such a good point. And I was thinking of Fred too, with like Maya and Fred. They could have had such they could have built on like a dynamic, because Fred stayed until 2012, something like that. So they could have had a few more years together. Yeah. See, great points, Rebecca. See, Maya is overdue in the SNL Hall of Fame, and you were overdue to appear on this podcast. I'm already seeing that.
It was meant to be then. That I'm here. I'm here to vouch for her, and then hopefully vouch for a return on this podcast.
I think you've already sealed a return. 20 minutes in.
Wow.
So, as far as Maya's work on SNL, what kind of immediately stands out to you? Like we can kind of just talk about it like a specific character or sketch right now.
Well, you did mention Bronx Beat, and that is the number one. Like, when I look back at my 10 favorite sketches of all time, I think Bronx Beat is really just up there in that list. Like, when initially I'm like, okay, Maya's on the show. Who are we talking about? Bronx Beat is that for me.
So, you like to ride bikes?
Yes, I traveled all over the country and found the best trails and rated them according to difficulty and size and,
You know how many times I had sex last year, Frankie? 0.002. And it was my choice. This area down here, it's got the Ghostbusters thing over there. No one's allowed in there.
No trespassing.
No trespassing. Closed for business. You know that red circle thing with the line, the Ghostbusters thing?
Yeah.
It's my choice.
Yeah, you know what? When my husband wants to get sex...
It's always funny. No matter when I watch it, no matter what mood I'm in, it is just always one that gets me laughing. And I think that was a good point you made about Amy and Maya's chemistry. Like, they have such a funny, like, chemistry in this, and their dialects, it's just a dumb sketch, but it really just always hits. Sometimes you just get those where you're like, this is amazing. Yeah. And that was pure gold. So that definitely stands out to me.
It's a dumb sketch, but it's not. It's not a dumb sketch because they have these mannerisms so down. Like, you're from New York, you said, right?
Yes.
Have you met these ladies before?
Yes.
You know?
So I'm from Long Island, so it's a little different, but there's there's a similarity between Bronx and certain parts of Long Island, and I think especially like older generations, like the accents are real. Like, people actually sound like that. And I think that was around like an era with Jersey Shore was also like, how are these people real? But they are. And the people of Bronx Beat, those people exist. And it's awesome to see. And it was like a really great depiction. And they really just took those characters to 110%. Mm-hmm. And they were relatable. Like, I was able to be like, oh, that's who that is. As someone from New York. And it was awesome.
Yeah. That sketch was so musical too. Like when Amy talking and then Maya talking, like the way they bantered back and forth, it was very musical. It was like just something about it. Like you had to be an amazing performer to get those beats down. It was. I remember the Jake Gyllenhaal one, when they were kind of flirting with they kind of flirted with their guests and stuff, but just like the way they would bounce back and forth, she and Amy, there was just real like music to it. That's whenever I watch those sketches, that's all my mind goes to. It's just, as a performer, she was just so good about hitting those exact beats. Is very conversational and very relatable. I'm from New Mexico. I've been to New York, but I'm not like an East Coast guy. But it was still like I felt like I knew those ladies.
Yeah, for sure. Like they definitely exist, and I feel like some people got it and they were like, I could relate this, but other people that have never met anyone like that still were able to relate and be like, I saw this person on TV, and it was an awesome depiction. So that's like the number one sketch that really stands out to me.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a coincidence too that they started doing these later in Maya's tenure there on SNL. Yeah. Like when the cast and the show as a whole was starting to flip into another golden era, and we saw something like Bronx Beat, which she and Amy came up with. So I don't think that's necessarily a coincidence that these started happening a little later. One that I revisited today that was just like pure Maya just owning it was that national anthem.
Yep.
Was that like one of the next ones that
was in my I was deciding which one I was going to bring up next, and it was either that or the one I'll get to then after. But I love that. I mean, one of my like happy videos is watching Fergie sing the national anthem, and I could do every single quip, and that's, I think, kind of what it was loosely based off of, was Fergie for the Basketball Hall of Fame sang the national anthem and took a lot of creative liberty in a way that did not pay off. But I'm sure it's probably one of the most watched national anthems of any sports event ever. And Maya so perfectly encapsulated that. But also, she's a super talented singer. So I think that was part of it. But Fergie at this national anthem just like went off and did all these ad libs and runs that were so funny. And to see SNL do that in a way that wasn't an exact copy and had Maya like fully just shine and go off on that. And like, that is quintessential Maya. Like when I'm imagining her in my head, she is just singing and doing something funny vocally and through singing. And I think that this sketch still holds up now because it's always relatable. Like there was a super viral video this month of this little girl that sang the national anthem again so horribly, at one of these games. And I was like watching this one again yesterday and I was like, oh, it's like this little girl now, but you could have watched it 2 years ago and related it to another just bad national anthem performance. So
yeah, as long as people are singing the national anthem, they're going to be singing it poorly because it's a hard song to sing. So
exactly.
Yeah, you're going to get
I don't know why people keep doing that. Like, just sing the song as it was written. Like, it's very rarely paid off for people to just make it their own. And we're seeing that. I think this is just a relatable sketch, whether it was 20 years ago or today, because you could always relate it to something going on.
Through the night.
I feel like they told Maya maybe on that Monday, whoever, maybe it was her that came up with the idea, but I feel like they just kind of told Maya, like, we need you to do a national anthem and kind of butcher it. Sing well, but just like butcher it. And Maya's like, I got you. And she came up with that. It was just so like her facial expressions were perfect. I think she added in, she started singing Take Me Out to the Ball Game or something at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so perfect. That's like quintessential Maya. I'm glad I revisited it again today because you're right. That is quintessential Maya in that performance. Yeah. What else is quintessential Maya? She's so fun.
She's so fun. The other one that I think like she shines out of a bigger cast is Super Showcase Spokesmodels. This, in my mind, is just Kristen and Maya doing their thing. It's a spoof of The Price is Right, and it's showing contestants what they would have won. So it's Kristen and Maya as the Vanna Whites walking around. I know that's Wheel of Fortune, not Price is Right, but walking around and being like the spokesperson. And you just watch like Kristen and Bill Hader just lose it. And it just shows like Maya was probably someone that was so fun to have on set and someone that you look at and you're like, yes, I'm in this sketch with them. And she made them break just by being her and standing out so much out of like the crowd of this sketch that it cracks me up. Like I'm a sucker for people that break in a sketch, especially when it's like actually funny.
Yeah, when it's not like forced or
not
they're
like
not
an inside joke type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna kick yourself when you see what Shauna and Vonda have in their carts.
Look at this, Deborah! A lifetime supply of frozen chicken by Chicken Man.
Imagine years after years after years of chicken right at your fingertips.
Tickle. Each chicken looks as good as this one. That's a Chicken Man guarantee.
If your mom likes chicken, you might like chicken.
Was her voice kind of similar to like, remember that Art Dealers one that she and Fred did?
Yes.
This almost like the similar
Noonie.
Like this almost like a similar voice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Maya.
Just we don't know what the rules of the game are still.
Right.
Like, what would a right answer be? And she just did such a good job here.
Yeah, she of course Bill is known to break, but for good reason when you're working with somebody like Maya. Honestly, I don't know how Vanessa Bayer kept it together in that sketch. She's probably new and maybe afraid of getting fired, so she didn't want to break in that sketch. But
Yes.
Yeah, that was so good. There was one, and I don't know if you remember these or when it got a chance to go rewatch. They're hard to find. You got to know where to look. But she did one that I alluded to earlier, and it's an example to me of something very clever that Maya was able to do early on. Like these appeared in 2002 and 2003. It was Tennis Talk with time-traveling Scott Joplin.
Let's start with you, 92 Andre Agassi. What's new with you?
Well, things are pretty great. I just won Wimbledon. I'm dating Brooke Shields. And I'm doing these pretty awesome commercials for Canon cameras.
That's great. By the way, Patrick Swayze called. He wants his hair back. How about you, present-day Andre Agassi? What's going on with you?
I'm really excited. I just had a second baby with my wife.
So if you haven't seen it, if you don't, do you remember these, Rebecca?
Vaguely. So enlighten me.
I'll recap. So Scott Joplin is a real person. He was a composer. He basically is called like the godfather of ragtime kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
And so the premise was that Maya played Scott Joplin, who traveled, who was a time traveler, who became a time traveler, and through his time traveling experiences, he figured out that he really enjoyed tennis. So he created a talk show, Time Traveling Tennis Talk with Time Traveling Scott Joplin. So he would like have these tennis players on and pretty much like be passive aggressive and make these quips, but then like after like Burns would go back and play like a ragtime ditty and then come back and like talk to him and be condescending and be funny at this. And it was Maya like dressed up in a suit and short hair, and it was just such a bizarre, to me, very clever, very like, where did this come from? And especially for that time in 2002 and 2003, it really like stood out amongst peers. But that's an example to me, like of her being able to play in like more just kind of subtle, weird kind of things rather than over the top things. So that's when if you hadn't seen that in a while, if listeners you hadn't seen that in a while, it's around season 28 and 29, Tennis Talk with Time Traveling Scott Joplin. And okay. Rebecca, like I think
that one.
Yeah, go check that. But I think Rebecca, like she's versatile. That's the versatility that I was talking about with Maya.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other thing that I've noticed, I know we spoke about impressions and we kind of touched on that earlier on, but Maya comes from a unique background. Obviously, we love that she is a very successful Nepo baby. Minnie Ripperton's her mom, and she's Black and Jewish. And I think she was on the cast at a time to be she was a Black woman representative. So for a lot of the impressions we saw, they weren't spot on, but within being that character and playing characters that most of the rest of the cast couldn't play at the time, she took these roles and didn't just say, okay, I'll just do an impression. She completely dramatized their characterization to a T and to 100%. And I think she took her background of being both Black and Jewish. Like in Bronx Beat, the people that related to me, I'm like, oh, those are Jewish people from Long Island that I know. Although it's not technically that from the Bronx, she always let herself shine. So a few of her impressions are just like, when I looked back, and really, really standing out to me is not like, wow, you are Oprah, but you are making me hysterically laugh. So that specific one is just Oprah's favorite things I have down. And then also the Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Cage Birds Laugh as a show.
Hello, child. I am the rock. I am the river. I am the one who put a pie under the butt of Morgan Freeman.
Whoa! Watch as Maya Angelou pranks her esteemed colleagues. Look out!
It appears I've sat in a pie.
I suppose you have.
But I feel no shame sitting in that pastry. Just human nature, I suppose. Yes, it has been an honor.
So she really took these and made them her own. and was like, okay, if you want me to do this, I'm still going to be Maya in this because I can't do a spot-on Maya Angelou impression. So I'm going to make it a show instead of just like an interview with Maya Angelou. So I think that's where she really got to shine in a lot of those times at the time. I know we were saying before, she was never specifically written for like as much as I think she deserved to be, but in a lot of her impressions, I think is where the writers really had fun with her.
And she created characters even out of real people who I wanted to imitate as well. You said you don't do impressions. I sure as hell don't do impressions. But with something like her Whitney Houston,
yes,
I find myself almost mimicking it. My sister-in-law, we sometimes will get to talking about SNL and she'll always be like, oh, I always go back to Maya Rudolph's Whitney Houston, Bobby Brown. And we'll just kind of sit there and say Bobby Brown to each other.
Eric is a real Geico customer, not a paid celebrity. So to help him tell his story, we paired him with Whitney Houston.
I thought I was going to have to postpone my exams.
That's when I got in my SUV, threw that sucker in reverse, and drove backwards all the way to Dionne Warwick's house.
Geico took care of everything immediately, and I passed sociology.
I passed Bobby Brown the other day, and I threw an old bag of chicken McNuggets at his head. Ain't it shocking what love can do? Ain't it shocking what love can do?
Geico.
Ain't it shocking
Real
what
Rex.
love
Cars.
She has that kind of like energy and creates these characters that even fans, like, we want to like imitate and we want to like act like that because she radiates like that energy on screen. Maya does.
Exactly. And that's why I think bringing her back as Kamala Harris was such a specific choice that I think SNL took. They could have had someone come back, that was actually at a time where they were just bringing people in left and right to play people that weren't specifically in the cast, and they chose Maya, and she did such a unique take on Kamala that I think was more successful than someone that was like uncanny. Like, I mean, you look at Sarah Palin and Hillary Clinton with Amy and Tina, and although they were really funny, they were really spot on impressions where they've had the characters in the room together, but Maya took Kamala and made it why people liked to laugh with her and at her and go through all of those phases where I thought it was like a genius pick, but it was actually interesting because they were bringing back a lot of people while Alec Baldwin, I don't think, was the funniest Donald Trump. He was super, super spot on, but they made such a specific choice by having Maya come back and be Kamala with not a spot on impression, but added a lot of light. Maybe she wasn't as like serious as having like Biden or Trump and someone that like we actually want to convey like this is our political take and the stance in this sketch, but just having Kamala as like, oh, you know, you're going to say one or two lines in this that'll make me laugh.
Senator Harris.
You see, this is what they do, Susan. They avoid taking any responsibility
We do not.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
Well, I'm just trying
I'm speaking.
But yes, but...
But I'm speaking. See, I'm speaking right now. Estoy hablando, Nevada, Arizona, some parts of Texas. I'm speaking.
I understand that. I understand.
I don't think you do because you're talking and I'm speaking.
I love that choice to bring her back. And I think having a previous cast member come back for a recurring like cold open bit and then pop up in a lot of the sketches that we've seen throughout those seasons where she was back, that's enough to put her in the Hall of Fame for me.
Yeah, that's so you do look at times that they appeared outside of their time, like as an official cast member. Like you do take that into account when you're looking at cast members.
For sure. And also impact after the show, I think that's what I do. Because it's not like the SNL Hall of Fame in my mind is, oh, you were on SNL and you came from this and it was all encompassing. Like, what did you do on the show? What did you do with your platform after the show? And a lot of people don't utilize that platform after the show as well as others. And I think Maya is someone that really took that by storm and completely is just now kind of killing it and consistently killing it since her time on SNL, back on the show as host, as recurring characters in that. And I take that all into consideration. But just besides her specific years on the show, it's like you have one of the biggest comedy platforms in the whole world. Are you going to actually make use of what you had on here? Right. And I say without doubt, she definitely did. And I mean, just to bring up the number one thing everyone's probably thinking of her time outside the show is Bridesmaids. Like, sure. She made a legendary movie. Like, that is one that goes down in the books. When you look back at history, you're like, oh, that is just an all-time funny movie. It's the same way.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, Will Ferrell had all of these movies as well after. Obviously, Maya doesn't have as much, I'd say, on her repertoire there, but you look back and that's one of the all-time great comedic movies of all time that I'm like, you were on this, you brought your friends into this cast, you brought Kristen into this, and like it all worked so well together that I related to SNL because it's a Maya and Kristen movie that was so funny and so amazing that I'm like, how could she not be in the Hall of Fame? The amount of times I watch Bridesmaids a year, just when I'm sitting with people and we're like, what movie should we put on? Bridesmaids. It's a classic.
No. Yeah, no, that's a perfect one to put on when you have nothing else to go to. No, it's an all-time great comedy. Yeah, and I'm starting to warm up to the idea more of thinking about like cast members and their impact even outside of their technical, like when they were a cast member on the show. I think you bring up good points, and I think that's perfectly valid to look at cast members that way. And Kamala Harris is a great example. And with Maya, you almost have to like take into cameos into account because she's been back on the show so much, and she played Kamala. Like there was, and we were talking about impressions. Like she found an angle for her Kamala Harris. They even told us what that angle was, like the cool aunt, right? Like she played Kamala Harris, said, "I'm the cool aunt," or whatever, and I'm gonna play it like that. So she was like the fun aunt who might have like rapped a little bit, but then they still made fun of her for saying like that little girl was me, like this kind of poking fun at Kamala at the same time. So she did find an angle. She has had an impact on the show. 2024 now, and none of us would be shocked if we saw Maya Rudolph come on the show in some capacity. I know Punky Johnson, they had her play Kamala. She didn't get any speaking roles when she played Kamala, but I don't know what their plans are with that. But we won't be surprised if Maya's like comes back to the show at any point and has a major
Kristen's
impact.
Hosting.
Yeah, you're right. As we're recording
really cool
this,
cameo.
Yeah, as we're recording this, Kristen's scheduled to host, I think, on April 6th.
Yes. So
Something
that'll
like
be
that.
interesting. And I would not be shocked at all if she made an appearance there. I actually have a question for you, Thomas. Just so I know how to angle to all the listeners here. Has anyone had 100% poll numbers into the Hall of Fame, or who was around like the highest? So I kind of understand their impact versus maybe why Maya wasn't in there.
I kind of think somebody like Will Ferrell or like Eddie Murphy. I seem to remember, or Bill Hader. I think like people like that have been in the 90s. Nobody's gotten 100%. And it doesn't matter in any sort of Hall of Fame, any sort of vote. You could be the best basketball, best football player, best baseball player of all time, and those guys don't get 100%. Nobody's got 100% of the vote in the SNL Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting then. I guess I think those people probably have had more impact on the actual show. But then I look at Will, and yes, he had amazing sketches. When you look back at, let's list everyone's favorite sketches of all time, you're going to have more cowbells, and you're going to have a lot of Will appearances. But I actually feel like his impact was made more after the show in a lot of the work he's done. So I'm seeing him a little more similar to Maya than like Bill Hader, who absolutely like obviously has impact off of the show, but like SNL was his playground, and he just completely ran that to the ground the same way that like Kate McKinnon has, and all of that. Like when you're watching them off the show, you're always going to relate them back to being on the show. But now you're actually going to look at Will Ferrell and you're going to be like, oh, that's Buddy the Elf. Like that's probably where your mind goes, actually, more than, oh, you're on SNL. It's someone that's just so engraved in the culture that you're like, oh, I forget you don't forget, but oh, you were on SNL. Instead of Bill Hader, it's like, oh, SNL's Bill Hader is going to be in this, or SNL's Kate McKinnon. And I think Maya's impact is probably more off the show, which is why she's been teetering around that 50% range for a little bit now. But I think people should take that into consideration because you're not supposed to be a Keenan and be on SNL for a million years. Not everyone could be that, considering there's only been one person. There's only been one Keenan on the show. And you want to take this life-changing opportunity and make an impact in comedy and in pop culture and in the world. And I feel like Maya has had such success in that so far. So take that into consideration when you vote, listeners.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. I want to use like my wife as like a case study for what you just said. Because she likes SNL. She's not as much of a fan as me. She probably only watches and started watching because of me. Yeah. But she likes it and she'll watch. But she knows Will Ferrell more for like Elf and things outside of SNL. She knows Maya Rudolph more, honestly, for popping up in shows that we watch and seeing her all over the place, probably Bridesmaids. So my wife is somebody who, that person that you said maybe knows those people more for outside of SNL. My wife wouldn't know Bill Hader unless, she went back and watched earlier seasons. If she saw Bill Hader pop up on something, she wouldn't be like, oh, it's Bill Hader. But she sees Maya Rudolph and my wife's like, oh, that's Maya Rudolph. I love Maya Rudolph.
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
Good play. My wife is like, I love that they got Maya Rudolph to play the judge. Or in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Maya Rudolph played Dionne Warwick? No, who did she play?
Yes. Yeah, wait,
Something
it wasn't. Yeah, and she's just like a standard. Also, I think about Big Mouth. The second you hear the hormone monster, she is hysterical. And I think Nick Kroll did an awesome job choosing Maya to be such a pivotal character in that show. Obviously, it's a cartoon, so it's on her face, but she doesn't need to be her face. So yeah, she was Dionne Warwick.
Dionne Warwick.
Yes, and
I thought it was that or Diana Ross or somebody
one of those.
Well, yeah, somebody like that. Yeah, but you could tell like in Big Mouth, she put her stamp, her complete stamp on it. I'm drawing a blank right now. That she popped up recently in something, and I was like, oh, Maya was just so perfect in that. But that's what she does. Maya just leaves an impression on the screen. No matter what, if it's 2 minutes, if it's 30 minutes, Maya's going to leave such a great mark. Oh, it's Documentary Now. It's like my favorite episode of Documentary Now is Test Pattern, which is a takeoff of they're lampooning and paying homage to the Talking Heads, Stop Making Sense. Okay. And Maya's in that on Documentary Now, and she was wonderful in it. She was perfect. She just makes such an impact, Rebecca, just no matter how long she's on the screen.
Literally, I'm looking at her IMDb right now, and she's in literally everything, just as a voice, as a name, like whether she just makes a short appearance. I'm like looking at this and I'm like, oh wait, yeah, she was in that. She was in specifically the movie Booksmart, one of my all-time favorite movies. She's a voiceover. And I could tell you the scene that she's in my head, because even though it's just her voice in a non-cartoon movie where it's a lot of big names and a lot of cameos, I remember the exact part she was in that movie just by thinking about it. And she's done a lot of cartoons and comic movies there. And yeah, she just makes a lot of appearances in things. And if you look at who's starring in those or producing them, it's a lot of just big name comedians that love her and respect her. And I think she's a super respected name in the comedy scene and the community that people want to hang out with her. And I feel like if she could come back to host for season 50, and if not, I feel like she would just be a big presence in whatever sort of celebration and special that they do for the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, she's going to absolutely be a huge presence. So we can wrap this up by one last sort of plea, I guess. And you can look at me, Rebecca, as a stand-in for all those voters who haven't voted, because I've been on the fence a little bit, maybe more so than I should. So you can look at me and scold me if you need to, and tell me and SNL Hall of Fame voters out there why they should finally vote Maya Rudolph into the Hall.
So I'm going to think about this from a legacy point of view. And if Maya never passed her audition onto SNL, would your life be changed? And would pop culture and the world be changed? For sure. SNL would have been different without her on it. I think she was a pivotal cast member at the time where maybe she wasn't the star in every sketch, but her impressions and her quips and one-liners are things that you forever remember. And then her mark in pop culture and history throughout the years after her being on the show. She is someone that if she was not at the 50th special, you'd be like, where's Maya? And I think that alone just would make you want to vote her into the Hall of Fame, because I think she really has made her mark on not only SNL and the way that kind of impressions are done from then on into just the real world. Like, what if Bridesmaids didn't exist? What would we do? We'd be very missing out. That would be a hole in my heart. So she's someone that I think really made her mark and took her 15 minutes of fame and really impacted culture and the comedy scene from then on. So I would vote for her to be in the Hall of Fame. And she's been on the cusp for 5 seasons now. And I think that's telling that people really do love her, just probably haven't fully mentally appreciated her until this episode. So vote for Maya for this.
Thank you so much, Thomas and Rebecca. That was spectacular, relitigating the case, as Thomas says, of Maya Rudolph. I, too, am surprised she's not in the Hall of Fame. She wouldn't necessarily be in my Hall of Fame, but I'm shocked that she's not in. She's got, so many votes at this point. So this is her last chance. This is her last kick at the can. And you got to get out and vote for her. May 6th, voting will open. And it's very important for you to exercise your franchise and make that vote. So that's what I got to say about that. Let's listen to a sketch. This is Maya Rudolph on Weekend Update, and it's a dandy. So let's give that a listen right now.
This week, Whitney Houston auctioned off over $175,000 worth of items from her storage unit in Irvington, New Jersey. Here to talk about it is Whitney Houston.
Ooh, come on down and buy my junk, baby.
Hello. Hello, Mrs. Houston. Always nice to have you here.
Oh, feels good, MEP. Unloading my baggage. Yes, Mama is lighter. Light as a feather, stiff as a board, MEP.
Okay, that's wonderful. It's wonderful, Mrs. Houston.
Yes, Polar Coaster. That storage unit has completely slipped my mind. Opened it up. It looked like the U store it from Silence of the Lambs. Straight up Sanford and Son. Woo!
All right. Thank you. Okay, yes. So, Whitney, you sold everything. That's great.
Right? Oh, no. Hell to the hell to the hell to the no. There are still some items that gotta go. And I ain't gonna lie, this legendary recording artist needs the cash. Mama needs money. And for that, you can blame Bobby B. Total waste of my time, Bobby B. Woo!
Yeah. Okay, Whitney, well... All right? All right? Okay, well, yes. Tell us what items are left. Some of our viewers might be interested in helping you out.
Oh, baby, you're a genius. Let me put on my cheetahs. Let's see. 4 solid gold turlets. 3 complete seasons of 227 on video cassette. Wind machine, very important. 8 monogrammed fur capes. They're perfect for your lady if her initials are WH or BB for Bobby Brown. 600 Kangol visors. A Lexus SUV, whose horn honks tenderoni. A warped platinum record that Mama used to heat a DiGiorno pizza. And a marble statuary of Bobby B and I with our business hanging out. And it's all going once, going twice. Nobody? No?
How many golden toilets?
4.
You know what? I'll give you $15 for everything.
Sold, Amy Peeping.
All right. Whitney Houston, everybody. Thank you, Whitney. Take it. Thank you.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a good one. And I don't know if it's going to sway you or not. There are some better sketches, there's no doubt. But it's tough finding sketches for this program because so many are visual. And if you think of her Beyonce character, for example, it's a very visual thing. But I don't know. I thought that was great. Whitney Houston, damn, she was so big at one point, wasn't she? Gosh. Well, next week on the SNL Hall of Fame, we are joined by the grand poobah of the Saturday Night Network, one John Schneider. He will be in discussion with Thomas about the stellar work of the great Will Forte. Please check this out wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're doing that, do me another favor. On your way out, as you pass the Weekend Update exhibit, turn out the lights, because the SNL Hall of Fame is now closed.
Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. Make sure to rate, review, share, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media at SNL HOF. This is Doug Donets saying, see you next week.
To podcasts and such.
Attention everyone, Wayfair's Black Friday preview sale is here early. Right now, get up to 70% off everything home and everything you need for the season ahead. Save on quality furniture for every room in the house, guest-approved bedding for a season of hosting, top brands and cookware, festive holiday decor for indoors and out, and so much more. Whether you need a new sofa that fits the whole family or a new serving dish that fits your famous sweet potato casserole, Wayfair is the place to go for Black Friday deals on finds to feast. Get festive and get comfortable all season long. Plus, sit back and relax with Wayfair's fast and easy shipping everything home comes straight to your home, even the big stuff. And the best part? Speedy delivery in time for the holidays. There's no place like home for the holidays, and no place like Wayfair for Black Friday savings. Shop early Black Friday deals right now and save up to 70% off, only at Wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.